Hey all, my name is Denise, and I have many reasons why I am here with you today. First and foremost is because I love the energy of young creative people, and I would pretty much welcome any interaction and a chance to hear what's on your mind. I get inspired by you are our future, and I get inspired by spending time with young students. So that's A. B is I live here in Boston, and I am a huge fan of Mass College of Art. I currently sit as a trustee on the board for the college, and also want to hear from you about what it's like to be a part of the MassArt community. And the third reason is because I am a huge fan of Chandra and the team at Artward Bound. I have been working with urban teens in Boston and Boston Public Schools for, I don't even want to say how long, like going on 20 years, because I feel like we have so much talent here in our city, and I want to do everything I can to help you guys find your path and find your way. I knew nothing about what I do now when I was in high school, and the big secret is I studied fine art in college, and I now am a professional designer, and I work on the brand side of design. And we're going to come back to you in January with a team from the brand group. But today we're going to be focusing on a different part of the universe. And I'm going to pull up my screen, and I'm going to just jump in. So today we're going to have a session which I call Real Talk. And it's Real Talk because we want to talk with you. We want to share with you real stories and the real thing behind people getting into the world of design. And today you're going to meet my colleague and my dear friend, Elyse Ayoung. I also invited into the fold with me today some colleagues from Gensler, as well as some other MassArt alums that happen to work with me at Gensler and work in the design community here in Boston. I've been doing what I do for so long that I actually am old enough to have employed people that are now way out of college and into the real world. But first about Gensler, I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Gensler. I hadn't heard of it when I was in high school, but it was founded in 1965 on the premise that design would play a role in society. And with a purpose and a core conviction around how the power of design can create a better world. And nothing would sound more relevant or more exciting than the idea that you could use your creative viewpoint on the world and your creative role in society to make it a better place, and to use it to be at the center of your world and your career, but also to help promote good things for everyone around you. Gensler is a global company. We have offices in over 46 cities worldwide. It's a big company. And inside that big company are small teams of really amazing people. So here in Boston, we have 160 people in our office. And within that community, we have small teams and small studios that collaborate and work directly with clients. So the experience of working with us is working in teams. And I know that Artward Bound introduces you to collaborative teams and problem solving, and that's a real life way of doing work. We are a global design firm, and it includes everything under the word of design. A lot of what goes into our work is thinking and problem solving, and thinking about strategies and ways to communicate ideas that then translate themselves into the visual and verbal world of design. We have different areas of expertise, but I think everybody on the phone here today with you wears a lot of hats. But today we're going to be talking, focusing on the area of architecture and interior design. We have brand designers, we have digital designers, we have industrial designers. We think about the planning and design of cities and the cultural fabric of cities. And we also look at pretty much everything there is to look at in lifestyle. We've designed everything from theaters and stages to large office towers. Our team here in Boston just completed the hub on Causeway, which is that really, really big project right next to the Boston Garden. And we have a really core kind of focus and interest in society and what makes society tick and what makes the world sustainable. So I included sustainability here as a big bucket, but we think about everything in terms of topics from homelessness to what makes people feel good and feel healthy in different cities and cultures. And we also really kind of get under the skin of what makes people feel good in any kind of place that we build or design. We do a lot of work around all the senses. And so when you think about design, I thought it would be interesting to introduce you to the idea that restaurants or places where you go to eat have design all around them. Everything from the design of the culinary beauty that reaches the plate, to the branding of the restaurant, to the menus, and to, of course, the physical spaces. These are just some restaurants that we've worked on. And design is everywhere. Design is everything from the physical environment to the visual sensibilities and the marketing materials that you see all around you. It also can impact everything from stage design to costume design to apparel to art and culture. The image that you see in the middle left are illustrations that were done by another MassArt alum. And those are posters that now hang in a hotel that we worked on. So you just never know where your art and your visual acumen and your creative thinking is going to land in the world as a designer. We work very collaboratively across lots of different kinds of design teams. And so it comes from everything from the thinking on one end to the end product on the other. And so this sort of like hairball on the right is this sort of weaving together of all these different minds and points of view and ideas and experiences that the end result is what you see and feel and touch in the world. I ran a program in Boston for a long time called Youth Design, and it was very similar to Artward Bound, and it was housed at MassArt. It was a summer program and an after-school program during the year. And I don't know if any of you have heard of it. We're not running it anymore, but Artward Bound is a sister to this work. And I've been working with urban kids now for my whole career, and I love it. So I love that the way Chandra introduces everyone on a call is by pronoun and by how you're feeling today. And so I put this together for me and Elyse. I am a lot of different things to a lot of different people in my world. I'm a creative director and a lifestyle brand designer at Gensler. I'm a trustee at MassArt. I'm a mentor and a teacher. I'm an artist. I self-identify as an artist. And I'm also a mom, a daughter, and a sister. And I care a lot about what's going on in the world. And I also would self-identify as an activist. So Elyse, I'm going to hand this off to you. And you guys are so lucky to get to spend a little bit of time with my friend Elyse.
Thank you, Denise. I'm so excited to be here. I wish it was all in person, but this call will do. And I love seeing all your faces, but I'm hoping this can be conversational. I'm going to go through some images of my work and then just talk a little bit about my career path and how I got to where I am today. And then feel free to, if you think of questions or put in the chat box, but hopefully, you are intrigued or curious about my story, and hopefully you see a little bit of yourselves in my journey. So next, not yet, but interior designer, architect at Gensler. As I mentioned, I graduated MassArt in 2010 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in architecture. And I'm also now mentor. I consider myself a creative first, I would say, and an interior designer second. And I am a daughter and a sister. And activist is a very large word and shoes to fill, but I'm really passionate about my work, and I'm passionate about you all and your journey to getting to your future. So um, I'm excited, and I'm hoping to hear from you guys in a little bit. Go to the so a little bit about my design journey. Um, I've now been working for 10 years, which to me sounds like crazy. Even though 2010 seems like a really long time ago, it doesn't feel like I've been working for 10 years, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. That means I just still feel really young, which is great. But I've been working for 10 years, and I've been working at different scale firms. So I started out in really small firms that were 3 to 4 people. And then I went on to firms that had 50 people. And now I'm currently at Gensler, which is 160, which is a lot. And it was very, very intimidating. But I'm really excited about the work that I do, because for me, it's about human connections. And that's really what drove me to go into architecture and interiors for a career path. So talking a little bit about MassArt, actually, I didn't go here first. A little bit about my background. I actually grew up in Dorchester. I went to John P. Holland, which was actually on my street. I don't know how many of you are from Dorchester or Boston, but it's an elementary school in the heart of Dorchester. And I actually went to a program called Stepping Stone. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but it is a program that sort of takes inner city urban kids and prepares them for exam schools. So that really propelled me. I spent an entire summer studying, which seemed crazy because that was in 5th grade. And like doing summer school wasn't something that I want to do, but I will say it was super fun. We learned poetry. We did things that I'd never done before, because before that I actually never even like learned poetry at such a young age. And then I went to the Grover Cleveland for a year. And then I got into Boston Latin Academy. And that is where I went to high school. So I actually came in as a 6E. If anybody is familiar with BLA, that's what you're called when you come in. In 7th grade, they call you a 6E, and everybody kind of like makes fun of you, but it was all good. And from there, I met a really, really great art teacher, Mr. Moy. I don't know if he's still there, but he really, took us around to different art schools. And for me, that was like mind blowing, because I had never thought about art as a career. I was always creative. I was around sort of, I guess, not design, but construction. My mom worked in construction management, so she would always bring home like architecture magazines of that nature. And I was like, oh, I love this, even though I didn't know what it was. And I was just really a creative person. I loved to draw. I was constantly like cutting up paper. I was making things. So I was very creative, which is why I said I'm a creative first. But it wasn't until I like visited MassArt that I realized, this is something that I could actually pursue. We didn't have, I don't think Artward Bound was around then. So what they did have at MassArt was something called Saturday Studios, which I don't know if they still have it now, but I actually took a pottery class, and that got me into like some form of art and attending. I did that for a few Saturdays, and after that I had my mind made up. But truth be told, I did not do as well in my grades in high school as I should have. And it wasn't until my senior year I was like, oh, maybe I should like really, work to my full potential, even though I knew I probably could have all the other years. But so don't do that. But that's just to say that, I didn't have my pick of what I really wanted, where I really wanted to go for college. So I actually went to Bridgewater State College first for 1 year. And while it was a really good school, it was not an art school. So for me, I was in art classes with people who were taking it as an elective. And it's really hard to be in a space with people who, see it as just, I guess, an activity that they're doing to fill the rest of their schoolwork, where you see it as like, this is your being. Like if you're not able to create, you feel like you're not living. So I had to break the news to my parents that like I cannot continue on or else I will literally be in a state of depression. And my mom was like really supportive. She actually was like, I felt so bad that I was also commuting to Bridgewater. So there was that. And I got my portfolio together. Back in that time, you had to submit like on these little chips. I don't know if now everything's digital, but it was pretty crazy. But I submitted my portfolio and I got accepted and I was pumped. And this is all to say, like because I was creative, I wanted to be like an art teacher. I think I wanted to be in industrial design. And then, I landed in architecture. And Paul Haitian, who's on here, was actually my professor 10 years ago. So it's awesome to have him on here. But I would say that my MassArt days were really where I found, started to really tap into who I was going to be as a person. I think a lot of us are artists, we're creative, and having that outlet and being surrounded, by people who think and are inspired just like you is pretty amazing. And to think that you could do that as a career was also exciting. So I just put up a few photos that I could find from 10 years ago that I actually took back at that time. I also included some photos we took. We played a lot, but we worked hard and we played hard in the studio, which I'm sure you all do too. But I really formed a lot of like really, really great friendships with folks. And one of the great things about going to MassArt was not only the education that I received, but some of the people that I've met are like my best friends now. And what's great is that you meet people from different walks of life. So my best friend is actually from Turkey, Istanbul, and she went to MassArt, and that alone already starts to, I think, widen your perspective of culture. And that was really exciting. So that was my time at MassArt. So before I came to Gensler, I was working at a firm called NBBJ, who did a lot of healthcare, which is a very different project type from designing offices. I had the opportunity to work on a hospital in Kuwait. And it was really, really meaningful and impactful work to me because we were designing a cancer center. So we were designing with families and individuals in mind, knowing that, they're coming to this facility because they've been through trauma, they're going through chemotherapy, their families are living through this. And how can we design a space that really makes them feel comfortable when they come, knowing that they're going through such a difficult time. So what you're looking at on the left is a prayer room. Again, I mentioned this is in the Middle East, so you have to have prayer rooms. We had to have one on every floor. And in this case, in Kuwait, we had a bigger budget, I will say, so you'll see a little bit more bling. And that also speaks to the culture. When you're designing for different cultures and in different environments, the materials that you use will be different. And then on the right is a rendering. Again, these are both renderings of one of the treatment rooms. And, materials are almost everything of what we do. It's just as important as the space because that's really what makes an environment. As I said, like when you go into, certain areas, you'll notice that you're stepping on either a hard surface or a warm surface. The walls can be, white or black. Different colors evoke different emotions. If you go into a restaurant, per se, that's like super dark and moody, you immediately get that sense of this moodiness and cozy feeling. Whereas if you went somewhere that was really bright and white, it maybe you feel like you're more in a cafe setting. So material and lighting is really key to what we do as interior designers. It's taken me 10 years actually to get to the point where I actually feel like I know what I'm doing when I'm picking materials. That in itself is a lot of learning and understanding like sound, the touch and the feel of different materials, the durability, and just like what emotions come out of the feeling of whatever materials that you're selecting. So hopefully that's a good analogy to what you're working with, but you can ask more questions after. And I want to be conscious of time. So quickly, this is another project that I worked on, which is a brewery. None of you can drink yet, so you probably don't know what Notch Brewing is, but it is a brewery. They're actually in Salem. So again, this was exciting because we worked with the existing structure. So you'll see like brickwork. We worked with really great local artists. So all of the artwork that you see on the walls, that was all hand done by the artists in the area. And even down to the menu board, that was hand painted on materials that we actually found within the space. So the bar, the wood that you see, that was all reused from materials that were already there that we took and we sort of upcycled, if you will, and made it really sing in the space so it felt true. And then I wanted to finish off with residential design. So I wanted to take you on a journey of different project types, just so you have an understanding of like what you can really do with interior design and spaces. It's endless because it's all the spaces that we're in. It's in the room that you're sitting in now. But this is a project that we did in JP. It's actually a freelance project that I worked on. And we completely redid their kitchen. It was for an artist. So the guy that you see sitting down, that's actually his artwork on the walls. And it was really important that his space felt like it connected to his art. So we actually tied in the flooring, which you notice is green, to sort of tie into his artwork and really make that feel true to his work and what he does. So again, playing with textures and materials. You'll see brick, you see like sort of a black wood and a marble. This is all part of design when you're thinking about interiors. And that's just one part of design, as I mentioned, and really highlighting everything that can go into that. So being able to create a space that his artwork then hangs on the wall and complements the space, which is great. And then this is just a snapshot of materials. When we're, pulling different tiles for someone, this was all tile options that I pulled for a client. And I just had laid them out because it worked really well with my pink sneakers. But it's fun for me to pull a tile, and you can see the material is graphic too. Like these are all patterns made by artists that then get made into tiles that we can put on the wall, which is great. And then the one on the left is just another palette, and you can see they're totally different, but pulling colors and thinking about color theories and color stories, which you might work on with your work when you're painting or sculpting or whatever form of art that you work on. There's always a concept or a theory. And here we're starting to play with shapes and color theory. So you start to see that come in on the patterns in the tile, and then you'll notice that those patterns reappear in like a wallpaper or a fabric. It's really keeping it cohesive, but identifying our like graphic and color, concept for a space. That's how it starts before it becomes a rendering. Actually, it's just like pieces of stuff on the floor.
And behind all the materials even that you see is a whole team of designers, of engineers, of technical designers that sort of mix the paints and mix the materials that make the composites, etc. And in terms of career titles, we've got textile designers, industrial designers, even the sneakers are designed by someone, and someone decides that in 2020 the color is pale pink or whatever. What's I think the Pantone color of the year for 2020 right now is sort of this like cerulean blue. Who knows? but it mixes together, I think interior design mixes together fashion, and it also mixes in lifestyle. So, the palette that you see here from Elyse, I don't know when you were working on this. Was this a recent project?
The one on the right is, and then the one on the left, I think was like last year.
Yeah, so like this is in the last year, but if we had looked at a palette from 10 years ago, it would look totally different. I remember when I was in art school, I don't want to even tell you when, earth tones were all about earth tones, and now everything you see is trying its best to be, sustainable and earth friendly. And so it doesn't have to just look like an earth tone to sort of suit that purpose anymore.
Mm-hmm. And we'll go quickly, so we leave time for questions. But yeah. I also wanted to talk about exploring different crafts. Like I said, being creative and an artist, it doesn't just stop if you become, an interior designer or an industrial designer. You're always exploring different art forms because you're naturally just an artist and a creative. So for me, one of the things that I've been doing is rug hooking. It's random, but I found this woman on Instagram. Somehow she just came across my Instagram page, Rose Perlman, and I was completely fascinated with her work and what you can do with rug hooking. So I set off and I was like, oh, I'm going to start rug hooking. I'm going to rug hook all this stuff. And this was one of the first pieces that I did. I'm still working on another one, but again, it's just always exploring something different. I had never done any rug hooking before. I didn't even know what rug hooking was until I found this person, which is also great for Instagram and social media. I feel like I'm always finding a new craft. But that was one of the things that I explored and I'm working on. And then also we did this really fun challenge at Gensler because we've all been home for 8 months working from home. And I think this was actually a challenge that we stole from something else, but it was to find an existing piece of art or artwork or something that you were inspired by and recreate it with whatever you had at home. So this was my interpretation. And obviously there's toilet paper and vitamin C pills because this was in the height of our quarantine and everyone obviously needed to guard toilet paper with their life. I'm so happy that we're not there anymore. But that was just something fun. And then, I really wanted to touch on why your creativity matters. These are just a few quick stats that were pulled from the Design Museum. I don't know how many of you know about the Design Museum or how many of you even know about these stats, but they are really important. Black designers only account for 2% of the licensed architects working in the US right now. That is a crazy number. And it's actually been 2% for the last 10 years. 25% of firm leaders are women, and then 55% of creatives cite lack of awareness for professions as a barrier of entry. So I think what's really great about the Artward Bound program is that the exposure is starting early. Like I said, your creativity matters, your voice matters, and your art matters. Because without this, I think it's not going to be as true. And this is why your design voice matters. I will say that, and another stat is that 86% of graphic designers are white. That is a number that we absolutely, when we start to look at these numbers, it's important for us to seek careers in art and design and know that it's a possibility. I think for a lot of us in the beginning, at least for myself, I didn't know that I could have a career in design at all. And it wasn't until I reached high school that became a possibility. So just quickly, and this starts to talk about my movement and why it matters for you all to succeed in your careers in whatever form or path that might be. But representation matters, taking up space and connecting you to opportunity. I recently started an organization called the Mid Collective with a dear friend of mine, and it is for minorities in interior design. And we really just realized that there weren't a lot of us. I actually started out my career super excited, and then it wasn't until I got into an office that I was like, oh wait, I'm literally one of the only Black people in an office full of like 100 people. So that was already a shock, and it took a little adjustment, I will say. But once I got over the fact that like I'm here for a reason, I'm here because I want to be, and I'm here because my design voice matters, and it's important that it's part of the process and the project, then I'm able to continue on. So I think, keep going at what you're doing. And if you're interested, you could follow us on Instagram. I'm also a part of Boss Noma, which is the National Organization for Minority Architects. It's the National Organization for Minority Architects, but we have a lot of designers. We have graphic designers, we have engineers, we have landscape architects that are part of this sort of collective, all people of color. So we're pretty excited to have both of these organizations where we feel like we have a brave and safe space for other creatives like ourselves to connect, but also to just reach out and talk to, students like you who might have questions, who don't know, like, maybe I do want to become a designer, but what is a designer? We're always here to like help you through that. And I think that's it. Stay in touch. I put my handles on there, and also Gensler's handles and Boss Noma, and also my email. If any of you guys have questions after this, absolutely feel free to reach out to myself or Denise or anyone from the leadership on Artward Bound who can connect you. And that's it.
Elyse, thank you so much. And I do think that something that's kind of important to say. And again, I grew up in a very different era, and Elyse is 10 years in. But in my day, it was a sellout if you were identifying as a true artist to sort of pursue a career in anything other than doing fine art. And I think that what I've learned over the years is that there's lots of ways that if you choose to pursue being a fine artist, there's lots of ways that you can participate in design projects and design teams. We commission art and we work with artists all the time, but also it's not selling out. Every day I feel challenged creatively and pick up a pencil and sketch and, free form ideate and think about new ideas and thinking. And I like to say it keeps me young and fresh. So I think we're going to open it up now for open conversation and dialogue.
Yeah, I can take the lead for that. So students, thank you to the presenter first. It was amazing seeing the background. But now for students, do you guys have any questions you want to ask?
Got any advice for us about, going into a space, particularly any design space, when you first get into design? What's your advice?
I would say my advice is it will always be intimidating. Like a lot of things in life, you're always going to feel intimidated. You're going to have some form of fear. I was nervous to present to all of you today. I think I'm sweating. I don't know why I wore a turtleneck, but I would say that, you just have to be confident and always ask questions, and know that you're probably not the only person that feels that way when you enter a space, or a design space or any space for that matter. But I would say just, ask questions, be true to yourself, and be confident in your work. And you're always going to have a bit of fear, but don't let that stop you from propelling forward.
For the law firm where you worked in the hospital, well, not in the hospital, but you were designing things to make the environment seem less anxiety filled, I would say. Were there any other type of positions where it wasn't necessarily through the design, on computer, that you could see? Would you working with people
Yeah, so before it actually got to the rendering phase, we did a lot of work, it's not as nice looking as pretty pictures, but there's so much work in just uh, like talking to people, hearing about their experiences, hearing what patients go through, hearing what families go through. We're working with planners, so they're not designers, but they help to plan the space. To help us organize programming. So knowing how nurses actually work in a space. So all of this is like, we consult nurses, we have doctors on our teams, we have patients on our teams, we have families on our teams, especially for a project like that. It's always important that all of the voices are there because that's who you're designing the space for, you know? If we didn't have that, we would just be designing for a fake, it wouldn't be successful. So it's always important that who you're designing for, you make sure that they are a part of the process in the beginning before it gets to any pretty pictures.
Hey, Elyse, I have a question for you. I know I work with you day to day, but just hearing you speak about your work and your background made me think that, do you feel ever that your days repeat from the previous one, or do you feel every day is like a new adventure sort of on the work and the creative side of things? Can you speak about that?
Yeah, I've had days where it seems like I'm doing the exact same thing, and it is hard. I think we're all creative and we're artists and we like to be challenged. So for me, when I don't feel like I'm being challenged creatively, I start to not depression, but I start to get anxiety, and I start to feel like I'm not pushing forward. So when that happens, I literally will like go on Pinterest, or I'll watch like a special, or I'll look at like some artists that I really like and get inspired by their work. And that actually helps me get re-inspired by the work that I'm doing. But I do have days where I feel like I'm doing the same thing, or I'm not doing enough and I should be doing more. So I'm always just looking for ways to stay inspired. And sometimes it's not even an architect or interior designer. It's something completely different.
Can I ask a question if my audio and stuff is working all right? I wanted to ask, so I never really realized before that like interior designer was like an actual like job, and I'm like excited to hear about your story and whatnot, but I wanted to ask, how exactly did you get like fully into the field as far as like finding work and stuff at the beginning and like getting your name out there?
So I actually didn't know about interior design either. Like I said, I went to school for architecture because I thought that I wanted to be an architect, because in like from the outside, it just looks like architecture. That's what everything is. But in actuality, it's like Denise mentioned, it's all parts of design. And as I started to like work, I realized that I liked interiors. And that's when I started to learn that's what an interior designer was. They actually like shaped the interior space of a building. So it was no longer about a big, massive building or the outside of something. It was about the intimate spaces that you create. And it actually wasn't until I got my first job in design after I left college, I didn't actually get a job in design right away. I worked at my mom's firm. She does construction management. So I actually was on the other side of the table interfacing with designers, but not having that relationship where I was actually designing. So I think that kind of helped me realize what I should be doing by being exposed to those other paths. Hi.
I wanted to ask, I'm really into architecture, and I want to do architecture like landscape design and interior design. Mm-hmm. Could I do all those things? Is that possible, or do I have to choose one of those topics?
I wouldn't say you have to choose, and that's the way that we're hoping that the profession goes, and like that we hope to expose to you all, that you don't just have to pick landscape or you don't have to pick interiors. There are a lot of firms that actually do all of the above, so you might actually dabble in a lot of them, and you might study. I think what's important to know is that overarching is design, and we're all sort of designing to a certain extent, but it's where you kind of have that passion. I would say that landscape architecture really focuses on the journey to a space, right? It starts to talk about the connection with nature, and then when you come into the interior world, it's how that then brings you into that. So I think you could absolutely explore both. You might have to pick one, obviously, as your major, but you can focus both of your efforts on the projects that you kind of see your interest in. I think that you could make a connection with that. And then you might even end up like, oh, wait a minute, I want to do furniture design. It could go anywhere.
Thank you.
Elyse, we have a question from the audience asking about the profitability of an artistic career and,
Sure.
and kind of navigating that.
Sure. I can speak to a career in design because that's sort of where my career has taken me. But if anyone of my colleagues on this call want to talk about artistic career, they can. But I think that's one of the misconceptions that we have when we're young. I had that misconception that I would not be successful or make any money if I go to art school or if I have an art career. That's not the case. I think that you absolutely can have a profitable career in art. And we have some pretty amazing people on this call who have. And you can see that it's absolutely possible. I think it involves like commitment, taking opportunities when they come to you, and really making a name for yourself and being confident in your work. But I would say yes. I don't know, Denise, if you want to.
Elyse, when you say art, are you including design in that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm talking specifically for design. I can only speak to my career in my design path, but
So if I can jump in and answer maybe that, I think also defining what you mean by profit or making money, because if the goal in your life is to make money, then definitely architecture is not the one. I think you can go out and become a stockbroker or something that's dealing with money, or a banker and so forth. But it depends on what your goals are. To me, I'll say money is important to pay the bills and so on, but design fills me in so many ways and angles and parts of my body that I cannot even explain. When you come up with a sketch, and that sketch later on in 2 or 3 years becomes a building, and you're able to walk through your sketch, and the thing is physical, it's affecting people. To me, that's worth more than gazillion dollars. So to me, I feel rich, I feel fulfilled, I feel complete when I am able to create. And so that's me. And again, your journey and your interest and your family and the pressures that you get might tell you got to make money, you got to fill up the bank, and that might be the important thing for you, and that might fill you up. But to me, I'm talking now, my journey it's not about that. Sorry, Elyse, I took
no.
from you.
I want everybody to.
Sure. Yeah. If I can jump in, I think when I went to MassArt, I was friends with a lot of first generation students to art college. I obviously did not come from a background of artists. And I think there was a lot of misconceptions about salary and different ways of making income as not only a designer, but an artist. If you guys want to learn a little bit more specifically about what that can look like, I would highly recommend looking either at the LinkedIn salary insights, and you can look at average pay in different cities and different roles for a different amount of time in the industry. And then, Glassdoor is another great option, but thinking about there's a pretty wide spectrum. So there are people who practice studio, who work with art consultants and have very comfortable, 5 to 6 figure salaries. And then you have corporate, which, has a full wide range from agency all the way up to the tech world. I have a personal mentor who went to MassArt who works at Google and has a really comfortable standard of living and feels really fulfilled by his career. And I think that to jump on top of what you were saying, Alex, there's ways to feel fulfilled in what you do, while also still being able to kind of, fulfill your monetary obligations.
Yeah. Oh, also to comment on that, I also, before architecture, like I had I guess like my desire was to be an artist as well. I grew up doing a lot of art, drawing and painting as well. And I didn't really even know architecture was really a thing until after I even did my application for college. I changed my major, after I applied to Northeastern as a biochem major, which is a whole nother story. I agree with what everyone said, but also just the possibility that you can carve your own path. Like, even though it might not have been done before, you can be the first one to do it. And it is possible. There's people who have, maybe they were into, design, and they have like a t-shirt business or a brand or something of that sort. They collaborated with Bank of America, or people who are corporate, but they do murals and they do all different types of art. Like, it is possible. Again, just like what everyone said, it does take work. And I guess it defines success is, I feel like society defines success as making a lot of money, which, I guess that could be. But I think that if you're fulfilled in the work that you're doing, and that your work makes impact on, your work can impact nations, your work can impact communities. And I feel like that, in a sense, is more successful than any type of money that you can earn. Now, of course, yes, let's be practical. You have to pay the bills. So, but I think that define what success means in terms of your art, and know that there are people who support art, and find those people that believe in you and that can support you in that regard, and that have those connections, and you can carve a path. It might not be easy, but it is possible. I don't know how helpful that is, but yeah.
All right, I want to throw a quick question in there, but of course I want to leave space for all of our young people. I was struck by the slide where it said 18% of folks of color fail culturally, or something about there was not a fit in that slide. And I was like, what? So I'm not really understanding what that was. So if you could perhaps explain what wasn't quite connecting, that folks came up in the door yet couldn't stay. And you said there was a cultural piece to that.
Yeah, so, am I on mute? Oh, no, okay. So I think what we talk a lot about, and this, here we go. Yeah, so 41% of new hires fail within the first 18 months.
Yes.
So I think that speaks to exposure, right? And one of these platforms that we have right now, which is really important, is talking to real designers and real people who have sort of been in the professional environment, and understanding that when you go into an organization, for me personally, I was one of the only Black women that I saw in the firm that I was in. Now, this comes with a lot of, intimidation, a lot of pressure, a lot of opportunities for me to fail if it's not a right cultural fit. So if the organization isn't sort of being able to accept me as a Black woman in this profession, in this space. And that's the problem that we see happening, is that we want to make sure that our designers feel comfortable enough to go into a space that may predominantly be white. Because honestly, that is the hard truth that I'm going to tell you today. That is going to happen. But it is what you do forth after that really will carve your specific path. And it's really, when you get to an organization, really helping them to help you understand the best way to work with you. So that's what's shocking about that that number. And, I think that's a major key to why we're here today. And I think Alex or any one of my other colleagues can speak to that as well.
I also think shining a light on that percentage is interesting, but it's a shared responsibility between those that are engaging in hiring and those who are stepping into new positions. And so as hard as it is to come out of college and to start a new career, you add all these other layers on top of it, and it's a 50-50, actually 41, whatever. So I think that the truth of the matter is that all of you are in high demand. The world needs you, and you're super talented, and you have a very specific, huge value and huge voice to be shared. And companies are working really hard right now to do better and to think about how to do better. And you can help them if you find a culture, to Elyse's point, where you feel that there's, you can trust the environment you're with, and you can trust the people that you work with. They want to hear what's on your mind. They want to hear what your experience is and try to, move it all in the right direction.
Okay, so my question was, because I remember one of the slides saying she has gone into other crafts as well. I was just wondering, obviously you would need to work and everything to get money, but how would you balance because I've seen other artists talking about how they don't have enough time to do art for themselves. How would you balance that?
That is a very hard question, but and I think I will talk about my personal experience with balancing, and I for me personally, when I do not have another creative outlet, I start to feel anxious. So I try to make time for my personal art. So if it's rug hooking, I like to sketch. Sometimes I'll sketch on my iPad or just by hand, but it's kind of just carving out some time on the weekend to do that. And I think you have to start that really on and train yourself, because when I was younger, I was super excited to just be working. I was learning new things. My mind was mentally all on just taking in everything that I can learn. And you start to find your footing and your balance. But it will take time. I think just making sure that even right now, I will say with all of us being at home, we're having to learn in different ways. We're having to find the balance just in our homes. Right now I'm in my living room. And after I leave work at my desk, I'm going to go to the couch, which is right next to me. So it's literally just trying to find the balance in your life to say, I'm going to do this. On Sunday, I'm going to take 2 hours. I'm going to do more of a personal artwork that's not, that's not design or drawing plans or whatever it is. So hopefully that's helpful. But I think it's really just, trying to find the time if you can, and pushing yourself to carve out that time.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I think for a lot of us, being creative is our mental break from everything that's happening. So, you work 9 to 5, you get home, you're tired, you don't want to do anything, you want to watch Netflix. But instead of watching Netflix, you can set some time apart to just kind of do the thing that eases your soul. For me, I found that I come home from work and I was like, you know what? I want to learn how to play the piano. And instead of just getting into my routine of what I do coming home from work, one day of the week, I just sat there and played the piano. So I think we can find time during the day just to kind of have our creative outlets. But again, as Elyse said, it's you got to be diligent about setting time from doing the thing that you're used to doing and just setting it apart and just saying this is specifically for me to kind of get my mind at ease and do the one thing that feeds my creative soul.
This may have been touched on briefly, but I just wanted to ask how being online and in quarantine has affected your work, and is it more hard? And I also wanted to ask how the outreach has changed, who comes to you, or how many come to you or are able to see.
as I mentioned, like now it's been 8 months that we've actually been working from home. When it first started, I was like, oh, word, I'm gonna be working home for 3 weeks. I was like pumped. I'm gonna be having my laptop on my lap on the couch. And then the 3 weeks came and went, and then 3 months came and went, and I was like, oh, this is really happening. So it was hard in the beginning. And I think it was probably hard for everyone, no matter what you were doing. It's just having to realize that you're constantly now on your computer. At least for us, I was constantly on my computer, and I was so used to like sketching with my coworkers, like in person, and like pinning things up on the wall. I had to learn new ways to do that. So I had to learn new ways to like get my idea and my designs across without being like across the table from someone, or like blurting out an idea when I hear someone else talking about it. So it was hard in the beginning, but I think that it also, made us like start to think more innovatively of like how we're able to think about design and work with each other, like over the screen. And it's actually worked in some cases for people too who aren't able to like speak up as much. That whole idea of walking into a room and like not knowing anyone is different. Like spotting someone in the room. Now, if you spot someone on the screen, you're like chatting with them and you're like, oh, hey, but everybody's the same, same level feel. And I would say in terms of outreach, at least for me, I find that this is now a lot easier for me to connect with people that I wasn't able to connect with before. Like I would love to, go to MassArt and talk to all of you more often. And I would have loved to do that in the past. But, with us working during the day, now that we have this opportunity to actually know that we can meet each other virtually, it's pretty amazing. So like I can just call you up and be like, hey girl, what's going on? And we're both at home and we don't have to worry about like trying to find a time to connect. So I would say that's the plus that has come out of like this virtual environment that we're all now living in.
I do have like one question myself. And that's only because like I just finished college as well. And I wanted to ask like, your education that you get from MassArt, like how relevant is like all of that to like the career that you're doing right now? Like, do you find that like you're utilizing like all the skills you've learned from MassArt, or like are you like taking skills that you've learned from high school as well?
I'll answer, but then I'll also let maybe some of my colleagues who just more recently graduated answer that question, because mine might be 10 years old. But I will say that I still feel like I'm utilizing some of the things that I learned in school, because that really sets the foundation. And for me, without that, then I might have been struggling a bit. So it's the foundation that really sets the framework for then what you're going to learn, because you're going to learn a lot more when you start working. But what that helps you do is to just understand the basics and understand like where to start and concepts. That kind of thing, I think, is really built in education and in the school. And then also just learning to work on teams, learning to manage your time. Like that's super important. I think that we start to learn when we're in school. But for me, it's been useful. But I'm going to pass it to maybe like Michelle or Devay, who recently graduated, and see if,
So, I graduated 2019, so I'm super recent grad. I think the thing that MassArt gave me was the mindset of being a creative person and being surrounded by creative people is a really one of a kind experience. And I think it really humbles you and it makes you learn how to, talk with creative people, which I think is, really essential in the career. And then, the other component of it is being in that constant learning mindset, right? So design and creativity, it never ends. There's never like a kind of like end of the road. And honestly, I've pivoted since my time at MassArt. I started, being someone who was like, I'm going to design book covers, learning about design thinking, worked in marketing, then later, apparel, and then going into strategy. So it's not so much, I think, about the hard tools as it is the soft tools that you get both in college and in high school.
Yeah, I recently graduated from college last year, but I went to Northeastern and I studied architecture. One thing that I can say about a design field is that you will never get bored, and that's the best part about it. Like you're constantly learning, you're constantly interacting with different people, and like I mean, I definitely could say I learned a lot from college, but getting into the job is so much more. It's being an architect, like in architecture, I just thought you were to design. No, you have to be a salesperson. Yeah, you have to like talk to people. You have to like sell your idea. It's just so much more that you'll learn. But the skills that you do acquire is beneficial, but just know that you'll just keep growing and keep evolving and keep evolving. And I mean, based off the people I've talked to, it seems like even people who've been in the field for 20 years, they're still learning something new. So one thing I'll say is like, you're going to keep learning, you're going to keep growing. And that's the beautiful part, is everything is constantly evolving with technology, with everything happening. I'm sure what I learned, from school might be different in the next 5 years. So, yeah.
Thank you. If there's like no more questions, I think we could pass it to Sandra to like wrap it up.
Thank you so much, Madeline. Most considerate of you. So I just wanted to say a big, big, big thank you to the Gensler team. Thank you, Elyse. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Devay. Right? Okay. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you all for spending time with us. And I liked, Elyse, how you said, we could just check in on each other. We can come back. And I really want you guys to take that to heart. We are a cool group of people. We consider ourselves a family. The students are doing their thing every kind of Wednesday and Friday to get their art game up. And we do this all year and the summer. I know that we're going to see kind of Team Gensler again in January, but we would love to reach out to you to be part of our critiques at the end of the semester. If you want to come visit and see what class is like, because I'm sure that other students had other questions that are still maybe percolating. And the whole goal of this is really to network, to mentor, to make connections. And I just want to say big ups to you guys. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We really appreciate it.